Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about hair in English, and I'm going to discuss with you all of the words and phrases that you need to discuss hair. We're going to review some of the more basic vocabulary, and then we're going to look at more advanced vocabulary. And at the end of the lesson, I'm going to teach you some really nice idioms that you can use. There will also be a little quiz, an opportunity for you to practice the words that we're learning in this lesson. Finally, before we get started, remember to download the PDF included with this lesson. So you will have all the keywords and phrases here, and you can download it just below in the description. You can find the link to download it, which will sign you up as well for my mailing list, so you'll get all of these in the future as well. Now, when we're thinking about hair, the first most important things to think about are the style of hair, the type of hair, and the colour of hair. So in terms of colours, we can have, of course, black, brown, or blonde. We don't say yellow hair, but we say blonde hair. And most people have one of these colours. But some people might dye their hair, and then they can have any colour they want. Green, blue, black, whatever. And that's the phrase we use to talk about changing the colour of something. You dye it. Now this is not D-I-E, like, it's D-Y-E. D-Y-E, when you D-Y-E something, you dye it. And you can dye your clothes, or you can dye your hair, so you can change the colour of something. Now when I say types of hair, or styles of hair, of course type is your natural type, how your hair is, and a style might be how you might change it. So some of these words will be in styles, or types, or both. Now of course, when talking about hairstyles, first of all, we'll probably talk about the length of your hair. So it might be short hair, long hair, or medium length hair. So you say, I have short hair, I have long hair, or I have medium length hair. I guess I have quite long hair for a guy. So I'm going to show you some pictures, and I want you to tell me what each type is. Okay, so here I've done some beautiful drawings. I hope you agree. And they have some different hairstyles. So around me, above here, you can see the different words for the different hairstyles. Have a look and see if you can match them all. I'll give you 30 seconds. Okay, so let's go through them. So our first person here has curly hair. This person, number 2, has straight hair. Number 3 is wavy hair. So wavy is like curly, just a little less curly. I would say that my hair is wavy. Sometimes I have some curls, but mostly it's just wavy. Okay, so number 4. Number 4 has 2 words. We can say that that person is bald. Bald. If their hair isn't growing anymore, then they're bald. And if they've taken their hair off, we can say they have a shaved head. Or he's bald if his hair isn't growing. Number 5 is spiky. He has spiky hair, or she has spiky hair. Usually to get spiky hair, you have to put something in your hair to get that style. Maybe you put wax in it, or you put gel in it, or hairspray, any number of products to get spiky hair. Number 6, this girl has a ponytail. A ponytail. So when you put your hair like that, or when girls put their hair like that, or sometimes boys put their hair like that, then it's a ponytail. So number 7, this person has an afro. An afro, so this is where your hair is large over your head and it's very, very curly, has lots of tight curls and comes up. It's an afro. Number 8, this was the most difficult one to draw, is frizzy. Frizzy. Frizzy doesn't mean that someone's hair is necessarily curly. Usually it just means that there are some hairs that stick up or stand out, even if most of the hair is flat or straight. If I come really close to the camera, you'll see that some of my hair is a little frizzy, so it might stand on end, some of the hairs. And number 9, finally, are pigtails. Pigtails. I don't know why we call them pigtails, but pigtails. Or you can also call these bunchies. Bunchies. How many of those did you get? And about colours, I did forget to mention one important hair colour that can be quite common sometimes in the UK, and that's ginger. Ginger hair is like orange. Orange hair. Ginger hair. We don't say she has orange hair, we say she has ginger hair. And if a woman has blonde hair, you sometimes call them a blonde. And if a woman has brown hair, you sometimes call them a brunette. Blonde can have quite negative associations, so it can be a little bit offensive to call someone a blonde. Because I don't know about in your country, but in England we have stereotypes in our mind of different people that maybe have different appearances or different hair colours, for example. So if you call a lady a blonde, it can be meant in an offensive way sometimes. So it's not something I would encourage you to do. But it's useful to know that we can use it as a noun to refer to a lady with blonde hair. And the same with brunette. A lady with brown hair can be referred to as a brunette. But again, it could be seen as a little offensive, so I wouldn't encourage you to use it. Other hairstyles we haven't mentioned are dreadlocks, cornrows, a bob, a beehive, and if I was really brave, I might go for a mohawk or a mohican. So this is one style with 2 different names, which is where you have the sides cut really, really short, and then you have really long hair all the way from the front to the back, and you usually style it so it's sticking up. Sometimes punks have this kind of hairstyle. And sometimes another one would be to get a perm. To get a perm. Now a perm is not something I have ever got, but it's when the hairdresser uses chemicals in your hair to make your hair really, really, really tight curls. Because it breaks down the bonds in the hairs so that each hair becomes incredibly tight and frizzy. So sometimes people naturally have hair like that, but you can also get a perm to achieve that as well. Now, most importantly, in the topic of hair, we need to think about, of course, when you go to the hairdressers, what you do, what you say, etc. So, first of all, we need to think about all these different words for hairdresser. We have a hairdresser, a barber, a hairstylist. Now, essentially, all of these people are hairdressers, people who dress your hair or cut your hair. But there are some little differences. So hairdresser is a general term we can use for all of them. A barber is a person that only cuts men's hair. Because men's hair is generally much more simple to cut and also usually cheaper as well, there are some hairdressers that are called barbers and they only cut men's hair, so only men can go there. And usually they're more basic, they're cheaper. You're not necessarily able to do all the things that you could get done in a fancy hairdresser's. You just go there for a simple cut. And then we have a hairstylist. A hairstylist is a much more professional, fancy word for someone who cuts hair. So if you go to a hairstylist, probably they're charging more money. I personally go to a barber's, so it's a place that they only do men's hair and it's quite cheap relatively. And in the UK, prices for haircuts do vary, but I would say that for a standard men's haircut, it's usually about £20. Sometimes you can find haircuts for a little bit cheaper than that, but usually the kind of average for a men's haircut is £20, maybe £30. I pay about 18 or something at my local barbers. And if you're a female, if you're a woman, then you, I think, pay at least £40 or £50 for a haircut. But sometimes people will pay up to £100, even £200 for a haircut. But the prices of women's haircuts are completely different to the prices of men's haircuts, and that's not something I'm an expert about. Obviously, you can go to fancy hairstylists in the UK. You can even go to a famous hairstylist and then you pay an incredible amount of money. But obviously it depends on how important your hair is to you and how much money you have to spend on your haircut. So when you go into the hairdressers, quite often they will say, "Who do you normally see? Who do you normally see?" And they mean which hairdresser normally cuts your hair. So you can say, "Oh, I normally see Tom, I normally see Sarah," or whatever. Tom and Sarah are the names I seem to always use for my random people in my head. So, you're going to sit down in the chair. They'll say, "Please take a seat." They might adjust the height of the chair, so they might make it lower, or they might make it higher. They're going to put that apron fabric thing around you, and also a piece of paper, usually, around your neck, so that the hair that they cut doesn't go under the fabric thing. And then they might wash your hair in the sink, or they might just wet your hair with a spray bottle, so that it's easier for them to brush and comb and cut. And they'll cut your hair, and at the end they'll show you on a mirror what the back of your hair looks like, ask you if it's okay, if you like it, if you would like it shorter, if you would like anything else done, and then, of course, they'll let you go and you can pay. Now, a really good phrase that we can use if we want our haircut is, "I would just like a trim, please. I would just like a trim, please." So a trim just means that you're making the hair a little bit shorter, making it tidier. So you're not changing anything dramatically, you're just cutting it at the ends a bit, tidying it up. Trim just means a little amount of hair off. And I would say that in the UK, the most common hairstyle for men, and the most common thing that we ask for, is short back and sides. Short back and sides. Can I have a short back and sides? Can I get a short back and sides, please? So that's short on the back and on the sides. So basically either with scissors or with clippers, which is the electrical device that they cut hair with, they'll make the sides and the back very short, and then on top you have a little bit of length, not very long. So that's the most common thing to ask for if you're a man in the UK. I don't have that. I have quite long hair, and I don't get short back and sides, because you can see I have hair here. If I pull it out, it's quite long. So this is all cut with scissors, not cut with clippers. What if I said this phrase to you? Widow's peak. What does that refer to? A widow's peak is a particular part of our hair that most people have, and it's the little V that we have in our hairline here. So I have a little widow's peak. But some people have very, very big widow's peaks. And it's a really strange word. Now this word has a very interesting history. In England, I don't know about in Europe, but in England at least, if you had a very big widow's peak and you were a woman, then people believed you were more likely to become a widow. And a widow is a woman who loses her husband. Her husband dies, and she becomes a widow. So someone who has lost their husband has died. So people thought that if you had a large widow's peak, you were more likely to lose your husband later on in life, which is pretty curious. One other type of hairstyle that we can talk about is a weave. This is a noun, a weave. A weave is when you have real hair, or fake hair, sewn into your hair, so you can have different styles. Usually people with dark, thick hair might get a weave. If they can't control their own hair so much, then they'll get real hair or fake hair sewn into theirs, and they can get different styles, and this would be a weave. She's got a weave. And we also talk about extensions. Extensions are quite common for girls to sometimes get if they want to make their hair longer. So instead of growing it, they can buy hair, fake hair or real hair, and they just clip it into their hair. So it's not sewn in so tightly, they just clip it in, and that's it, they've got extensions. And also we have a wig. A wig is a whole piece of hair that you just sit on top of your head, and it looks like it's your hair, but it's not really, and you can just take it off and put it on. You can change into different wigs each day. And when we talk about men, they might have a wig, or if they are just covering up one area on their head, maybe they have a bald spot, so an area with no hair, they would probably call it a toupee. So it's something that you can put on your head, and it looks like it's your hair and it continues, but it's not, it's a toupee. Okay, so let's talk about facial hair. So hair on your face. We call it facial hair. You might say, does he have facial hair? Yes, he has facial hair. So we can have lots of different types of facial hair. First of all, this is a moustache. Moustache. This word comes from French, and that's why it has such an unusual spelling, and that CH is not a ch, but a sh, just like sh, moustache. And then below that, we have a beard. Beard. And we can have a whole variety of different beards. But you might use some ordinary words like thick or thin to describe a beard. We also obviously have our eyebrows, 2 eyebrows. And we have eyelashes, eyelashes. So sometimes when you're older, like someone in my family, at the hairdressers, the hairdresser often offers to cut their eyebrows because their eyebrows are growing very long. And of course we also have hairs in our ear and hairs in our nose as well. Now when we take care of our beard or our moustache, we might comb it, or we might brush it, or we might also put wax in it if you want to control the shape of the moustache. And if we want to cut it, then we don't usually use scissors, but you'll usually use a razor, an electric razor or a regular razor if you want to completely remove it. If you don't want to remove it completely, then you'll probably use clippers, because with clippers you can put on a guard, and you get different lengths of guard, so you can cut your hair and it cuts it to a certain length. When you do shave your beard and moustache, then what is left is a little bit of stubble. Stubble. Stubble is the word that we use to describe the tiny bits of hair when they're very, very short, and when you touch them you can feel the hair, even if you can only see little black dots. So that's stubble. And a very curious phrase is 5 o'clock shadow. Now this is something I don't think I would really get, but if you shave regularly and you have maybe thick growth of your facial hair, then if you shave in the morning, then later on at about 5 o'clock, you might start to notice a very slight growth, very, very, very little growth, where the stubble has become a little more obvious. And we call that 5 o'clock shadow. 5 o'clock shadow. Because it makes the skin just look a little darker, very slightly, so it's like a little shadow on your face. That's 5 o'clock shadow. And another good facial hair term is sideburns. If anyone has hair here on their face, especially it was very popular maybe in the 19th century, if we think of Charles Dickens and things, then men used to have big sideburns. So they let the hair grow here and just shaved all the rest. And that's what we call sideburns. And when a lady puts her hair up in a ball shape, we call that a bun. So she can put her hair up in a bun, or she can put her hair up, which just means tying it on the top of her head in some way. And you can let your hair down. When you let your hair down, you're untying your hair, so your hair falls down. But that brings us on to some of our idioms, because our first idiom today is to let your hair down. So obviously it literally means putting your hair down, but it also has another meaning, because this is an idiom in English, and it means to relax, to have fun. Because when you let your hair down, you are ready to party, you are ready to relax, you are finished working. So we might say, for example, I can't wait for the party at the weekend, I just need to let my hair down. Now typically this is more often used by women and girls as an idiom than men, I would say. Our next idiom is a bad hair day. If you have a bad hair day, then it's not too complicated as an idiom because it means exactly what it sounds like. It means you wake up in the morning and your hair doesn't look any good. Your hair looks bad, and maybe you can't control your hair that day and it's constantly boom, pinging out and looking bad, and you say, oh, I'm having a bad hair day. Another interesting idiom that we have about hair in English is to tear your hair out. If you're really frustrated, then you tear your hair out. I told him to clean his room 20 times. I'm tearing my hair out. Or I'm trying to solve this maths equation and I've been trying for 10 hours. I'm beginning to tear my hair out. So when you feel extremely frustrated, this is a good idiom. We can describe someone with the next idiom. Never a hair out of place. She always looks so perfect, there's never a hair out of place. If something's out of place, it means it's in the wrong place here. So if she has a hair out of place, that would be in the wrong place. And she never has a hair out of place. That means that she's very, very exact, and her appearance is very, very perfect. So everything is planned and carefully presented. So not even one hair can break the rules. A lovely British idiom is hair of the dog. Hair of the dog. If you have a hair of the dog, it means that you have a drink the next day in the morning, an alcoholic drink, when you have a hangover. Now the full expression is hair of the dog that bit you. Hair of the dog that bit you. Now we don't usually say that bit you part, we usually just say hair of the dog. And if you ask any British person, I think, they won't know where this phrase comes from, but I can tell you. So rabies is a disease that you can get from dogs or cats that have this disease. And if they bite you, you can get this disease. And it's called rabies. Now, it was much more common a long time ago. It's not a common thing anymore. But in that time, if someone had rabies, they would actually sometimes put a hair of the dog that bit the person on the wound, on the bite wound. Why would they do this? They would do this because for some reason they thought that that would cure the disease. So that person was taking something bad from the thing that was bad to them to make them feel better. And this is what we do when we drink a lot of alcohol and the next morning we feel terrible and then we just have another drink. Because sometimes if you get a little bit drunk again, it might make you feel a little bit better. So we call it hair of the dog, hair of the dog. Now our next and final lovely idiom is to split hairs, or splitting hairs. Now if you imagine trying to take a hair from your head and trying to split it in two long ways, that would be really hard. So splitting hairs is talking about some kind of real small detail which isn't really that important. It's not necessary and it's unimportant. So for example, if I'm having an event and I invite someone and that person is late, let's say they're half an hour late, 30 minutes late, and then that person starts to argue with me because I'm annoyed at them, I'm angry, I'm like, why are you late, why are you 30 minutes late? And so we start to argue about how late they were, and I say, yes, you're 30 minutes late, and they say, no, I'm 28 minutes late. I say, no, it's actually 30 minutes late. And they say, no, it's 28 because I arrived at this time. And then I could say, look, we're splitting hairs. Basically, this doesn't really matter, you're late anyway, and what's the difference between 28 minutes late and 30 minutes late? So when you're splitting hairs, you're talking about something which really doesn't matter, that's like a really small detail. So it's a way of saying, let's stop talking about this, this isn't important, and let's move on. So that's us at the end of this video today. I've thrown a whole lot of words and phrases at you, so I hope that that's been useful for you. Down below in the description there's a little quiz. I've written some sentences and I want you to finish those sentences with the words provided. Don't forget to download that PDF. And if you have time and you want to learn some more English phrases, why don't you try this video, or this one up here. Thanks very much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye!